Have you ever wondered why some women linger in a man's mind like a haunting melody he can't silence, while others fade into the background of memory as if they never existed? There is a kind of woman whose presence unsettles a man's entire being, who disturbs the carefully constructed walls of his ego and awakens something ancient, primal, and terrifyingly vulnerable within him. Carl Jung would call her the mirror of his unconscious, the living embodiment of his anima, the feminine soul he seeks but does not understand. A man does not fall into deep obsession because of beauty alone. Beauty is seen and forgotten, mystery is felt and remembered. What truly captivates him is the woman who moves like a paradox, soft yet untouchable, warm yet sovereign, giving yet untamed. She speaks not always with words, but with energy, silence, and presence. And when she enters a man's life, something inside him begins to fracture, because she reflects back to him the shadow he has spent years suppressing. He wants her, yet fears her. He longs to possess her, yet knows he never truly can. This is not the path of seduction taught in shallow manuals or whispered over wine with friends. It is something older, deeper, a current beneath the surface of conscious interaction. Jung believed that we are drawn most powerfully to what is missing within ourselves. And so, the man who craves control becomes intoxicated by the woman who cannot be controlled. The man who worships logic finds himself undone by the one who embodies intuition. The man who hides from his own emotions trembles before the woman who moves effortlessly through the ocean of her inner world. Perhaps you have noticed this before without naming it. That when you stop explaining yourself, his desire intensifies. That when you live as if your center is within, not in his validation, he cannot pull away. It is the paradox of feminine power. The more she needs nothing, the more he feels he could lose everything without her. A man's obsession is born not from a woman's constant availability, but from her ability to remain rooted in her own mystery. Detachment here is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is self-possession, the unshakable knowing that your worth is not measured by his reaction. Most women have been conditioned to confuse love with pursuit, devotion with sacrifice. They are taught to dissolve themselves to be chosen, to explain, to justify, to earn affection through endless giving. But the women who awaken something deeper in a man defy this programming. They embody what Jung described as individuation, the process of becoming whole within oneself. To a man, this kind of woman feels dangerous because she cannot be absorbed into his identity. She refuses to orbit around his moods, his validations, his expectations. She stands as her own axis, and that is what makes her unforgettable. In her silence, he hears his own longing. In her gaze, he meets his unhealed wounds. In her absence, he confronts the hollow spaces within himself. She does not demand his transformation. She becomes the catalyst for it simply by existing as she is. Imagine the effect this has on his unconscious. Men, though they rarely admit it, are shaped as much by what they cannot have as by what they possess. When faced with a woman who knows herself deeply, he senses, even if he cannot articulate it, that she moves according to a rhythm older than his own desires. Her energy is not scattered by constant seeking. Her presence is enough. And so he returns again and again, not always knowing why, because she has awakened the part of him that yearns for meaning beyond conquest. This is why silence can be louder than any argument. Why a glance can burn deeper than 1,000 words. It is why distance, when rooted in self-worth rather than punishment, binds him tighter than constant availability ever could. A woman who is unafraid of solitude, who belongs first to herself, wields a kind of gravitational pull that defies reason. She becomes not the prize to be won, but the mystery to be explored, and that is where obsession is born. Yet, there is danger here too. For a woman to awaken this in a man without first knowing her own power is to invite chaos. Jung warned that the shadow, the repressed, unconscious part of us, can be projected onto others in ways that consume us both. When you embody your depth, you will provoke his. He may rise to meet it, or he may run from it, retreating into defenses built long before you arrived. You must be anchored enough to let his response be his own without losing yourself in the process. The irony is that true feminine power asks for no performance. It thrives not in chasing, explaining, or proving, but in being. To embody your inner world so fully that you become, without effort, a mirror to his deepest hunger and his deepest fears. To invite him to see himself, even when he would rather not. And in that reflection, whether he stays or goes, something in him is forever altered. There is a quiet, invisible gravity within certain women, a force so subtle that most cannot name it, yet so powerful that it bends the unconscious of anyone who encounters it. It is not beauty in the conventional sense, though beauty can enhance it. It is not charm, nor compliance, nor the polished rituals of seduction. What unsettles a man's soul and awakens his deepest obsession is not what she does to him, but what she reflects within him. Carl Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is precisely why some women ignite a man's inner fire while others leave him untouched. They awaken his hidden self. In a world where most people live disconnected from their essence, she becomes an interruption. Her energy disrupts the autopilot existence he's grown accustomed to. Her presence forces him to feel, and that is what terrifies him most. Men are taught to value control, to armor themselves against vulnerability, yet when she walks into his life, she slips past his defenses without effort. She does not fight his walls. She moves as if they were never there. Suddenly, his carefully curated identity begins to fracture, and beneath it, he confronts the raw, unpolished parts of himself he thought he had buried. This is where obsession is born, in the clash between who he pretends to be and who he secretly longs to become. A woman rooted in her feminine essence does not awaken desire through force or strategy. She becomes the silent reminder of his incompleteness. She does not beg him to love her, yet he senses that loving her would demand he step into parts of himself he has never dared to touch. That is both irresistible and unbearable. You've seen this dance before, even if you didn't have words for it. The man who claims indifference, yet lingers. The one who pulls away, yet keeps returning. He is caught in an archetypal tension older than language itself, between possession and surrender, between ego and soul. Jung would call it the activation of the anima, the feminine archetype buried deep within the male psyche. She embodies what he unconsciously seeks, yet fears he cannot hold. But here lies the paradox. Her power does not come from bending herself to his desires. It comes from being unattached to them. Detachment is not distance. It is sovereignty. It is the inner knowing that you are complete with or without his validation. When a woman moves from this place, she stops vibrating at the frequency of need, and that shift is seismic. A man feels it instantly, though he cannot explain why. Something in him leans forward, drawn by the current she carries, sensing that her essence cannot be bought or captured. This is why the mysterious woman haunts him long after others fade from memory. She leaves not because she plays games, but because she belongs to herself. He may touch her body, but he cannot touch the untamed expanse of her spirit, and that tension, the closeness without conquest, imprints upon him like fire. It is why her silence echoes louder than the words of 100 others. It is why her absence stings sharper than rejection. And yet, this dance is not without risk. To embody such depth is to confront your own shadow first. For many women, the temptation is to wield this power as manipulation, to awaken obsession for validation. But obsession without awareness is volatile. It binds both souls in projections they cannot sustain. Jung warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you do not know your own depths, you will drown in his. True feminine power comes not from provoking a man's desire, but from transcending the need to be desired at all. It is the ability to stand fully in your being, soft but immovable, receptive but discerning, magnetic yet free. A woman like this does not perform, she reveals. She does not chase, she attracts. She does not fear losing him, because she knows she cannot lose what is not aligned with her soul. And this is where the transformation begins, not just for him, but for her. As she sheds the conditioning that taught her to trade pieces of herself for crumbs of affection, she steps into a higher state of self-possession. She no longer contorts to be chosen, because she realizes she has always been the chooser. And paradoxically, it is when she releases the need to be pursued that pursuit becomes inevitable. To the man who encounters her, she feels like a doorway, a threshold between the life he knows and the life his soul secretly craves. He may resist it. He may even walk away. But he will never forget her, because she touched the part of him most men spend lifetimes avoiding. She didn't awaken obsession by offering herself fully. She awakened it by showing him the mirror of his own unlived depths. There is a stillness within her that unravels him more than any chaos ever could. Most people speak to be understood, but she speaks only when she chooses, and her silences weigh heavier than words. A man accustomed to constant noise, the validation, the seeking, the endless explanations, finds himself unprepared for the quiet power of a woman who does not beg to be seen. And yet, paradoxically, She is unforgettable precisely because she does not demand attention. Jung wrote of the unconscious as an ocean beneath the surface of our waking selves, a realm where desire, fear, and memory intertwine in shadow. When a woman embodies her feminine essence fully, she moves through this ocean effortlessly. She is at home in her depths, unafraid of her longing, unafraid of her wounds. This terrifies a man who has spent his life avoiding his own inner darkness. He feels drawn to her but cannot understand why, for she does not fit the patterns of predictable affection he has known. She reflects his unlived life back to him, and he both craves and resents it. Obsession begins here, in the tension between familiarity and mystery. She is not easily categorized. She does not move according to the rules he has written for love. One moment, she is soft and inviting, her presence a sanctuary. The next, she withdraws into her own world, untouchable, sovereign. To the unawakened man, this unpredictability is maddening. To the man who senses his own depths, it is magnetic. She is the flame that draws the moth, not because she tries to be, but because she burns simply by existing. But what he does not see is that her magnetism is not a performance. It is the natural consequence of wholeness. A woman rooted in her power has faced the mirror of her shadow and integrated what she found there. She has sat with her own chaos long enough to transmute it into wisdom. There is no desperation in her love, no clawing need to be chosen, because she has already chosen herself. And it is precisely this inner alignment that awakens a man's deeper longing. When she loves fully, but never at the cost of her own essence. She does not seek completion in him, for she knows she is already complete. Instead, her love becomes an offering, not a transaction. This terrifies men who mistake devotion for surrender. They sense instinctively that they cannot own her, and it drives them deeper into themselves, sometimes into obsession, sometimes into fear. Either way, she changes him. To understand this dynamic is to understand projection. Jung believed that every man carries within him an inner feminine, the anima, the image of woman that lives in his unconscious. When he meets a woman who resonates with this inner archetype, his soul responds before his mind can explain why. It feels inevitable, like destiny, yet it is not her he truly desires but the unclaimed parts of himself she represents. She becomes the mirror, and in that reflection, he glimpses his own unlived potential. But obsession, when unconscious, is dangerous. If she has not yet anchored into her own worth, she risks mistaking his desire for true intimacy. She may confuse his projections for genuine connection and lose herself in the fantasy he casts upon her. This is where many women fall, not in their power, but in their longing to be the image he worships. Yet the awakened woman refuses to be a vessel for someone else's unhealed psyche. She knows she is not his savior, nor his dream, nor his escape. She is real, and her reality is more powerful than any fantasy. This is why she does not rush to fill silence, why she does not over-explain, why she moves slowly through love as if time belongs to her. It is why her absence cuts deeper than her presence ever could. She does not play hard to get, she simply is. Her rhythm is her own. Her boundaries are living, breathing expressions of self-respect, not walls built from fear. In her refusal to abandon herself, she invites him, silently, irresistibly, to rise to meet her where she stands. But not all men will. Some will retreat, consumed by their own shadows, unable to hold the mirror she places before them. Others will stay, drawn by the challenge of becoming the man who can walk beside such a force without trying to contain it. In either case, her path remains unchanged, for she is not defined by who comes or who leaves. She remains rooted in the deeper knowing that her essence, her truth, and her presence are enough, with or without his obsession. The feminine that awakens obsession does not chase it. She understands that longing is an invitation, not a demand. And so she allows him to linger at the edge of her mystery, knowing that what he seeks in her is what he must eventually find within himself. She holds no fear in this awareness, because she knows the one truth that frees her from the power dynamics most people are trapped within. When you belong fully to yourself, nothing and no one can ever take you. There comes a moment when he realizes that what consumes him is not her body, not even her affection, but something far more elusive, her essence. That unnameable quality she carries, a depth that refuses to be possessed, a softness unbroken by the chaos around her. It is not something she performs or constructs, it is who she is. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and it is this becoming that makes her magnetic." She is not trying to be desired, yet she becomes unforgettable because she embodies herself so fully. A man's obsession does not arise from a woman's constant availability, but from the contrast between her presence and her mystery. He feels close enough to touch her, yet far enough to never fully hold her. She exists within reach but remains untamed, and this tension gnaws at something deep within him. For a man who has lived on the surface, such a woman is an initiation into depths he has avoided his entire life. She stirs the archetypes slumbering in his unconscious, the lover, the seeker, the hero, and awakens him to the parts of himself that long to be whole. But here lies a truth many overlook: she does not craft this effect deliberately. It is not manipulation, it is alignment. She has stopped betraying herself for acceptance, stopped dimming her fire to make others comfortable, stopped abandoning her inner world to keep the illusion of connection alive. She has faced her shadow, her wounds, her longing, her grief, and has made peace with them. In that integration, she becomes whole. And wholeness, to the fragmented, feels like gravity. When she looks at him, she does not seek to be seen, she sees. She notices the boy still hiding beneath the man, the fears buried beneath his bravado, the tenderness he guards behind walls of control. And without words, she speaks to the deepest part of him, the part that yearns to be understood without performance, to be loved without conditions. To be in her presence is to feel both exposed and accepted. That duality destabilizes him, for no one has ever reflected him back to himself so clearly. And yet, she does not rush to rescue him from his discomfort. She does not shrink her depth to make his journey easier. Her role is not to heal him, but to embody the possibility of what healing looks like. This is where most women falter, giving themselves away in an attempt to save, to fix, to earn love through sacrifice. But the awakened feminine understands that true connection cannot bloom where self-abandonment takes root. Her power lies not in rescuing him from his shadow, but in standing so firmly in her light that she invites him to face it himself. This is also why her silence carries such weight. In a culture addicted to constant validation, a woman who does not seek reassurance becomes an enigma. He expects her to explain, to pursue, to soothe his doubts, but she offers him none of these. Not out of punishment, but because she refuses to step out of alignment with her own truth. Her silence forces him into his own inner dialogue, into the confrontation he has avoided. Who is he when he is no longer mirrored by her presence? What does he truly desire? What does he fear losing? And this is where obsession deepens. He begins to replay their moments together in his mind, searching for meaning in every word, every glance, every breath. He wonders what she is thinking, who she is when she is not with him, whether she feels the same gravity he cannot escape. He oscillates between wanting to own her and fearing he never truly can. And yet, the more he seeks to define her, the more she slips through his grasp. For she is not meant to be possessed, only experienced. A woman who knows her worth belongs first to herself, and this self-possession is what makes her irresistible. It is not rebellion, it is authenticity. She is not withholding to create longing. She simply refuses to dilute her truth for temporary comfort. And this is precisely what calls him deeper, beyond the games of attraction, into the awakening of his own soul. But here is the paradox that few understand. His obsession is not really about her. It is about what she awakens within him. She is the catalyst, not the cause. Through her, he touches the yearning he has buried beneath ambition, distraction, and pride. Through her, he confronts his unhealed wounds and unlived desires. Through her, he begins to sense the possibility of becoming more than he has allowed himself to be. She cannot control whether he embraces that path or retreats from it. Some men will rise to meet the depth she embodies, stepping into their own wholeness. Others will run, consumed by fear, unable to bear the reflection she offers. But in either case, she remains unchanged. Her worth is not tethered to his choices, her essence not diminished by his absence. Whether he stays or goes, her gravity remains. Because a woman who belongs to herself does not chase, she attracts. She does not perform, she reveals. She does not demand obsession, yet she evokes it, simply by existing as she was always meant to. And for the man who crosses her path, life is never quite the same, for she has awakened something that will not sleep again.